This is the video number 4 of 6 in part 5, and we are still talking about the second angelic incursion into mankind history, related to the subtitle The Fallen Ones, Angels or Sons. Also, in the previous video, we were starting to review the verses where the word angel is used in the New Testament by the Apostle Jude and the Apostle Peter, referring to what we call the fallen angels. Today we are going to review the third passage in relation to the second fall, or the second incursion of angelic fall in human history. And as a recap, the verses we are using to record the second angelic falling or incursion: Jude 6, that we saw with 2 Peter 2:4 in the previous video, and Genesis 6 that we're going to review today. In the next video, we are going to talk about the third rebellion, or the third angelic incursion into human history. Now let's go to Genesis chapter 6, and I'm going to read verses 1 to 4. And we will find here that these angels, or these fallen entities, are called sons of Elohim. Let's review it. Genesis 6, verses 1 to 4, New King James Version. Now it came to pass, when men began to multiply on the face of the earth, and daughters were born to them, that the sons of God, that's the expression for B'nai Elim or B'nai Elohim, these were not regular recruit angels. But in verse 2 we read that the sons of God saw the daughters of men, that they were beautiful, and they took wives for themselves of all whom they choose. A little parenthesis here. In that picture of the Septuagint in Genesis 6, 1 to 3, I want to call your attention to the section where it says that the sons of God, verse 2, saw the daughters of men, that they were beautiful, and they took wives for themselves of all whom they choose. If you look at the picture and the copy of the Septuagint in that passage, the translators were very conservative and nice, writing wives, but the Septuagint says women. The point I'm trying to make here is, I don't think that these fallen angels who were directly defying the God of heaven and earth were taking women to go to the municipality or to the authorities to obtain a marriage certificate. So I don't think they were taking wives with signing documentation to have a certified marriage. They were violating all laws, and I have no information to back what I'm about to say, but I believe also that these fallen angels were taking some married women, women who belonged to other men already. These were defiant, these were contaminating the whole creation. They were disobeying directly God. So they were not taking wives with a marriage certificate for sure. This is just a short parenthesis they want to make on these regards. Now let's continue with our study. Verse 3. And the Lord said, my spirit shall not strive with man forever, for he is indeed flesh. Yet his days shall be 120 years. The verse 4. There were giants on the earth in those days, and also afterward, when the sons of God, the same term, Bnei Elohim, Bnei Elim, when the sons of God came in to the daughters of men, and they bore children to them. Those were the mighty men who were of old, men of renown. Now, in Genesis 6:2, I am including, as you can see on the screen, a non-professional photo. I just did that myself. I don't have the technology or the knowledge to do it otherwise. I am including a photo of this text that we just read in Genesis in the Septuagint. I am not planning to get tangled discerning if this is referring to the descendants of Shem. We already heard about that, versus the women who were descendants of Cain. There are full studies that prove without a shadow of a doubt that is referring to angelic rebellion. And part of the many proofs is the following question. If these were mere humans mixing the sons of Shem versus the women descendants of Cain, the question is, how come the offspring became giants? How come those babies became giants? That does not make any sense. Anyway, I'm not going to get into those details. There is plenty of information up there, and we are just passing through superficially. Now, in the verse in Genesis 4, I am providing on the screen right now a picture that I took myself with myself. I don't have the technology or the tools to go better than this, but I do it with all my heart. Now, at this point, everyone knows that the Hebrew term for sons in Genesis 6:4 in this passage is Bnei Elohim or Bnei Elim, and I'm providing a picture of the Septuagint in this section, Genesis 6:4. Now that is in Hebrew, but if you look at the picture, that the Septuagint is written in Greek, and if you pay close attention to the section where it reads the sons of God, the Greek word for sons is huios. Do you recall what we have studied in the New Testament in several places where the huiothesia that the Apostle Paul talks in Romans 8 and verse 23 means that those who participate in the first resurrection? Paul is uniting or linking the huiothesia, or becoming like Jesus, becoming a mature son, becoming son to another level, which is the one registered here, huios, is united to the first resurrection. So we will become huios. This is partially part of the proofs I'm giving, saying or stating that those who become like Jesus, those who have a call to be like Jesus, will be dressed with incorruption and immortality, and they will be ascended to a level of huio, which appears in these pictures. This is just a short parenthesis. Now let's continue with the mention of several verses in the Bible where in the Old Testament it shows the same expressions, huio, as a son of God, but we are using the example and mentioning continuously about the Hebrew expression, which is the sons of Elohim, or Bnei Ha Elohim. There are several references with that Hebrew expression in the Bible, which reveal if these fallen entities were mere recruit angels or fallen powerful immortal sons. But before we get there, read with me what the book of Enoch said about the angels who fall with you, human woman, referring to Genesis 6:4. In Enoch chapter 19 and verse 1, we read, "And Uriel said to me, here shall stand in many different appearances the spirits of the angels which have united themselves with women. They have defiled the people and will lead them into error, so that they will offer sacrifices to the demons as unto gods, until the great day of judgment, in which they shall be judged until they are finished." As we can see there, according to Enoch, these fallen entities will appear as gods with small g, as gods, but in reality, people is going to worship them, but people will not know that what they are doing is sacrificing to demons. Now, the expressions mentioned and the same words used in Genesis 6 1 to 4 in regards to these fallen entities that are called Bnei Elim or Bnei Elohim, which is sons of Elohim, from the standpoint of view of supernatural entities. We have several verses in the Bible with the same expression, Bnei Elim or Bnei Elohim. And through those we can see if these fallen entities were just recruit angels or they were actually fallen sons. Let's see it. I'm going to read in Job chapter 1 verse 6, New American Standard Bible. Now there was a day when the sons of God, there you go, our terminology, the sons of God, the sons of Elohim, Bnei Elim or Bnei Elohim, came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan also came among them. So we have that verse that is using the same wording, the sons of God or Bnei Elohim. In Job chapter 2 verse 1, New King James Version, again there was a day when the sons of God, Bnei Elohim, came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan came also among them to present himself before the Lord. Now we jump to the chapter 38, Job chapter 38, verses, I'm reading from verses 3 to 7 in New King James Version. Now prepare yourself like a man. God is talking to Job here. I will question you, and you shall answer me. Where were you when I laid the foundations of the earth? Tell me, if you have understanding. Who determined its measurements? Surely you know. Or who stretched the line upon it, so that were its foundations fastened? Or who laid its cornerstone? When the morning stars sang together, and all the sons of God, there goes the expression we are studying. When the morning stars sang together, and all the sons of God, the Bnei Elohim, shouted for joy. That means that these entities, these sons of God, these sons of Elohim, were present when the earth was created in unknown eternities for us. Now we're going to go to an expression that is used in Daniel 3:25 in New American Standard Bible. 25, Daniel 3:25 reads, He said, Look, I see four men loose and walking about the midst of the fire without harm. And the appearance of the fourth is like a son of the gods. That was an expression that is used all the time, but the expression, that's what the translation they did in this wording, but it's the same exact Hebrew word for sons of Elohim. The son of the gods was this expression used here in this translation in Daniel 3:25. So we said that these sons of God in Hebrew is B'nai Elohim or B'nai Elim. Even when we are reading the word sons in those verses, we are programmed to persist with the idea that these fallen entities were mere regular recruit angels, with our preconceived idea of what an angel is. I understand we are probably basing our position in the two verses in the New Testament, which translation means angels or messengers that we already studied. But applying one of the interpreting rules that we are mentioned in this presentation, I argue that the scriptures as a whole is greater than the sum of all individual verses. In this case, we have two verses reading angels solely in the Bible, and four verses plus one in Daniel that we just read, if we count this verse in Daniel 3, using B'nai Elohim or sons of Elohim in the Old Testament. But before getting to speak about the expression sons in the Old Testament, the consideration of the context of the word angels used in Jude 6 in New Testament already show us that there is another aspect we are missing in regards to these to be recruit angels. The very context that we study in Jude 6 shows that there is another word that we saw in verse 9 referring to Archangel Michael, and how these angels in the verse 6 in Jude 6, they lost their arch part. Let me explain. Michael the archangel, the verse 6 is saying that these angels lose their arcade. Remember the Greek word arcade. They lose their arcade part. Archangels. They lose the arcade part. And we find through that these were not regular recruit angels. And I also mentioned a note in the previous video where this is the origin of the so-called archons in ancient manuscripts, which comes to the conclusion that this is referring to the same fallen entities from another culture that were the word that we just mentioned, arche, implies, according to Strong's Dictionary, to rule or reign over. And we already studied that the word number is G757, which means to be first in political rank or in power. My point with all this explanation is that there is a lot more than what we think we know or understand in the heavenly realm. The Creator is more creative of what we could even imagine and far beyond anything human intelligence can comprehend. And I just repeat what the Apostle Paul said in 1 Corinthians, where it says in New King James Version, and if anyone thinks that he knows anything, he knows nothing yet, as he ought to know. I believe also that the very name Elohim is plural and is actually telling us something we unconsciously pass or voluntarily ignore. But apart from that, we should consider that when the Bible is telling us the the term sons. We should validate such a statement. I believe that the Bnei Elohim were what the Bible is telling us they were, sons, not mere recruit angels. And furthermore, God-like sons, or the sons of the gods, as we saw in Daniel, or the sons of Elohim. From our own perspective as believers and from a simple standpoint of view, we understand that God has different kinds of sons. Jesus is his son, and we are also sons, according to the Bible. But we are different type of sons. However, he wants us to be like his son, the only begotten son, and has provided everything we need to fulfill that indescribable, undeserved invitation. If we get to be elected to become like Jesus, that implies that we will become Bnei Elohim, as we have been saying, and gods with little g, just like him. I will explain about this. Is not what the positivist message in the modern church today is. Not gods like that. It's from another perspective that I will explain later. But as I mentioned before, these are not gods in the sense to be worshipped or to replace his position or anything like that, but gods in the sense of receiving positions in his kingdom and things that have never crossed the mind or heart of any human. If we become like Jesus, we will be really busy watching over areas of his kingdom in dimensions unknown to mankind. That of his position will make us watchers, the new watchers. It's okay if you don't agree with me, but you should continue with the concept in the Bible of the likeness of the Son. Now, different to all other sons, Joshua is the only son that was begotten from the Father in a woman to be born of water in the Spirit according to the most high purposes, giving him alone the meaningful title of Son of Man, the perfect God man being according to the wisdom and eternal purposes of the Most High. My conjecture is that the Bnei Elohim were, for lack of better words, almost like Jesus. It's like the younger brothers of Jesus, let's put it that way. The fallen angels or sons were created special, powerful sons of the same kind or the same class as Elohim in ways we can even imagine, but they were not begotten sons, only created sons. Jesus is the only begotten Son. Now, this does not mean that he is the only Son he has. What it says is the only begotten. The other ones were not begotten, and we're going to see that shortly in the Bible, an example. But not only the Son that he has. In the Bible, we find an example of the expression begotten in the text that can help us to understand to a certain level what I am trying to explain. I'm going to read in Hebrews chapter 11 and verse 17. Hebrews chapter 11 and verse 17 using the Strong's Dictionary wording. By faith, Abraham, when he was tried, offered up Isaac, and he that had received the promises offered up his only begotten son. The only begotten son of Abraham is emphasized in this verse. Someone could argue that the Bible is wrong in this verse because we all know that the book of Genesis records that Abraham also had Ishmael and that he was born before Isaac. From a natural and logic standpoint of view, Isaac was not the only begotten son of Abraham, but Ishmael was born out of order, let's say it that way, was not generated in the heart of the eternal Father. We could say that he was not the perfect will of God, but a permissive will for reasons that escape our understanding. So even when Abraham begot two sons, only one is recorded by the Spirit as the begotten sons of Abraham, according to the scripture, the son of the promise. So the well-known phrase of John 3:16 is not saying that God does not have other sons, but what he's saying is that he is the only begotten son. The famous verse in John 3:16 that says that he loves us so much that he gave his only begotten son. He's not saying that he is the only son he has. What he is saying is the only begotten son. That doesn't mean that he does not have other sons. From the heart of the Most High, he chose Isaac, not Ishmael, to inherit the promises made to Abraham. And from that point of view, he was the only begotten son of Abraham, as this verse stated. At the very beginning of this presentation, I mentioned that theology is a very complex matter, and even when I am not an expert, I found this eye-opening reference in regards to the expression sons of God of the Bible. Genesis Hebrew Grammar book, which was originally published in Germany in 1813 by Wilhelm Gesenius. According to some readings, he was an expert in biblical Hebrew. His work was edited and enlarged by Emil Couch, translated to English by Arthur Ernest Cowley in 1910. Gesenius' Hebrew grammar remains one of the most important scientific resources on the grammar of biblical Hebrew, and he considered historical sound change of biblical Hebrew as a corruption, and he literally explains the expression sons of God as follows. Ben denotes membership of a guild or society, or of a tribe, or any definite class. Those B'nai Elohim, B'nai Ha Elohim of Genesis 6, and Job, according to him, according to Gesenius' Hebrew grammar, B'nai Ha Elohim properly means not sons of God, but beings of the class of Elohim. That's found in Gesenius' Hebrew grammar. Now, no wonder Yahweh is protected 24/7 by strange-looking six-winged powerful beings, because these some beings are actually gods, whom have a prerogative of free will to decide in their own. Now, when I say gods, allow me to explain later in regards to this. We have a preconceived idea of gods. So I'm not talking about the characteristics of our Elohim and God, which is creator, he is all powerful, he is all merciful, he is omnipresent. So I'm not talking about all those characteristics in these beings that I'm talking about. I'm talking about gods as those in charge of sections or offices of the kingdom, if you will. Now, some of these sons that fell demonstrate without a shadow of a doubt that they can definitely use their free will when they decide to come down to this planet and get established as gods, looking to procreate a new non-ordained race that defile the whole creation. Not all the sons of God or B'nai Ha Elohim fell. So there are still sons of God up there that even when created as gods are not created from the perspective of receiving worship, but as a reproductive healthy characteristic of a creator and whom allow them to govern or rule in different aspects of the kingdom over his creation, which is the reason they are also called watchers. The fallen created sons, or what we call the fallen angels, were defiled with the same contamination of eternity's past, with an evil craving of being like God, to receive worship, even when I think that in certain way they were actually gods, not from the aspect of receiving worship, but related to the office they occupied in charge of different aspects of the kingdom in superior, unknown dimensions to ours. Now, their fall has opened that opportunity for us through Yeshua, as it is written, eye has not seen, nor ear heard, nor have entered into the heart of man the things which God has prepared for those who love him, according to 1 Corinthians chapter 2 verse 9, New King James Version. Now, the office positions, if you will, of the fallen sons were left empty. Remember, Jude 6, those angels that left their arcade and their habitation, those offices, those positions were left empty. The book of Enoch reveals that they have expertise in different areas that they were teaching their hybrid sons and which were not supposed to reach mankind. Also considering the fact that the Most High and Yeshua doesn't give hollow titles or positions, it's my conjecture that the elect, now like Jesus, will be assigned to different labors in positions that need to be filled in the kingdom of the Most High. The elect are not going to be sitting somewhere by the throne of the Most High with a sun-like validation certificate in their hands, just being lazy and looking everybody else busy without their own specific job descriptions. These job descriptions can now transcend dimensions back and forward between the earth and the heavenly and unknown beyond, due to their glorified bodies who were clothed with immortality and incorruption. Unfortunately, after that futuristic overview that awaits the elect, I need to get you down from the cloud and realize that, as we studied previously, not all believers will become like Jesus. Not all believers are going to be dressed with incorruption and immortality. And that's something that we need to consider, but this is a calling to reset your focus and reset your goals and walk with me in this path to the Holy of Holies, where Jesus is waiting for the overcomers of the seven churches. Now, let me talk a little about the repercussion, the consequences of the second angelic incursion into the history of mankind in this world. If you notice, since Adam and Eve, when they sinned before the Lord and sin entered to humanity, the level of violence and degradation was not developed. Nobody knew about witchcraft and all kind of satanic rituals and all that was brought to human by the angels in the second angelic incursion. So the level of degradation and violence and immorality was not profoundly developed until the fallen angels show up. They began to teach the women the secrets of the dimension from which they came. And they taught their sons, which were half human, half angel, hybrid sons, the art of war. They start the fabrication of weapons that was not known before. They start teaching how to deceive man. They start teaching astrology, the art of killing and violence that it lasts until today. Is affecting humanity today. In Enoch chapter 16 and verse 3, talking about this, is saying, you had been in heaven, but all the mysteries had not yet been revealed to you. So they did not knew everything about heaven. And you knew worthless ones. The wisdom they taught was worthless. And this in the hardness of your hearts you had made known to the women. And through these mysteries, women and men work much evil on earth. So Satanism, as we know it today, came originally from the second incursion. And the book of Enoch also reveals the origin of what we know as paranormal activity. The paranormal activity began with this second angelic incursion, so that affects heavily the spiritual realm surrounding mankind. The spirit and soul of the hybrid sons of these angels and the giants when they die, and because of the reason of original design, they have not place in heaven or in hell. And it was decreed for them to be like spiritual entities, evil spirits, defiled spirits over the earth after they die, until the great day of the Lord, the day of the judgment of Yahweh. Now we read in Enoch chapter 15 and verse 8. Let's see, we're going to read from the chapter 15 verse 8 to this chapter 16 verse 1. Now the giants who have been born of spirit and flesh shall be called upon the earth evil spirits, and on the earth shall be their habitation. Listen to that. The habitation they lost in heaven, now shall the earth be their habitation. Evil spirits shall proceed from their flesh, because they were created from above, from the holy watchers. The expression again, these angels are called watchers. From the holy watchers was their beginning and primary foundation. Evil spirits shall they be upon the earth, and the spirits of the wicked shall they be called. The habitation of the spirits of heaven shall be in heaven, but upon earth shall be the habitation of terrestrial spirits, who are born on earth. The spirits of the giants shall be like clouds, like ghosts, which shall oppress, corrupt, fall, contempt, and bruise upon earth. They shall cause lamentation. No food shall they eat, and they shall be thirsty. They shall be concealed, and shall not rise up against the sons of men, and against women, for they come forth during the days of slaughter and destruction. In chapter 16, verse 1 says, And as to the death of the giants, wheresoever their spirits depart from their bodies, let their flesh, that which is perishable, be without judgment. Thus shall they perish until the day of the great consummation of the great world. And destruction shall take place of the watchers and the impious, meaning the wicked. So we can see clearly that the origin of what we call paranormal activity began with the second incursion. It was really serious incursion that affects mankind and bring mankind to a deepest fall before the eyes of the Lord. If they fall when sin entered through Adam and Eve, this is a second grade. This is more profound. This is worse than the first state they have when these fallen entities came and taught them mysteries that are not supposed to be known by men. You may disagree with me in the following statements, and you are more than allowed to do that. But I believe personally that generational DNA from these hybrid creatures from those times have been transmitted through humans, and somehow it finds the way to infiltrate until our days. And we can see today, I'm saying today, people who has abnormalities which are non-human. By example, we have seen people, and you can research about this, but there are people in different places of the world, different continents, which have 6 fingers in their hands and 6 fingers in their feet, which is one of the characteristics of the giants in the biblical times. We read in First Chronicles chapter 20 and verse 6. New King James Version reads First Chronicles 26. Yet again there was a war at Gath, where there was a man of great stature, was a giant, with 24 fingers and toes, 6 on each hand, and six on each foot. And he also was born to the giant. If you have a chance to see the screen, I'm going to be putting some contemporary pictures of people in different places of the world that had 6 fingers. And that is also in the history of the Indian natives in the United States. That's why their greeting was showing their hand. I don't know how to say it in English, but in Spanish we know it as they greet the other one saying how and showing the hand, meaning I have 5 fingers. If they found somebody with 6 fingers, they will kill it on the spot. So I am showing contemporary pictures on the screen right now. I also believe that for that reason, because of the generational genetic DNA of the hybrid beings that were the giants, the sons of the angels and the women, until today we have DNA running in some places on the world. They are still here. And For that reason, particular reason, if somebody has that DNA, you may disagree with this, and that is okay, but I believe that there are some people who are constantly being visited and being abducted, and they're looking for them particularly. I have heard testimonies of people who move from one state to another in California because they have been having paranormal activities where they are being trying to be taken away, and they move trying to flee from this paranormal activity, but they cannot escape it. They will be found wherever they go. I believe that this is related to DNA that is transmitted through some humans. So we can see this also, the paranormal activity of visitation, the so-called grays or extraterrestrials, which is not other than demons disguise of extraterrestrials, the black-eyed children, and other manifestations, little people, humanoids, and etc., etc. I believe their origin is in this second incursion, and we see that through the book of Enoch. Also, the book of Enoch shows us that these fallen angels, and they mention the names of these, some of these angels, and how they taught the women witchcrafts and many other adivination and the mixture of poisons or enchantments. And we're going to read it right now in Enoch chapter 8 and verse 3. Enoch chapter 8 just has 3 verses according to this version I have of the book of Enoch, and I'm going to read it all. And Azazel taught men to make swords. Remember, Azazel was the one that was buried in the desert and is still there until today between Syria and Iran, somewhere in the desert, according to what we read previously. Verse 1, Enoch chapter 8, verse 1. And Azazel taught men to make swords, and knives, and shields, and breastplates, and made known to them the metals of the earth, and the art of working them, bracelets, and ornaments, and the use of antimony, and the beautifying of the eyelids, and all kinds of costly stones, and all coloring tinctures. And there arose much godlessness, and they committed fornication, and they were led astray, and became corrupt in all their ways. Semiasa taught enchantments, and root cuttings, Armaros, the resolving of enchantments, Parakijal taught astrology, Kokabel, the constellations, Ezekiel, the knowledge of the clouds, Arakiel, the signs of the earth, Samiel, the signs of the sun, and Sariel, the curse of the moon. As men perish, they cry, and their cry went up to heaven. So we can see here great degradation of mankind in all this intervention of the second incursion. And there is a lot more to say about this, but I'm going to leave it right here, just showing what I am sharing here to understand how deep we got affected. And when we study at the end of the next video, when we study about the third incursion, we will see in what levels mankind was affected by that incursion. May the Lord of all, Yeshua HaMashiach, who is King of Kings and Lord of Lords, bring to you peace of mind, and peace in your heart, now and forever. Amen.